Good evening, everyone. I'm Dave Eldon, and this is my friend Dalton Grimes. And we were gonna set up like this really elaborate thing where we would use video editing to have it look like I was presenting by myself, and then later on Dalton, I would transform into Dalton, and then that would be our kind of gimmick thing. But whoa, I am not. If anybody here has the video editing prowess to make that happen on a live stream, or even in the YouTube thing, we could definitely put it in later for the YouTube video. If anybody has the prowess of video editing to make that happen, be sure to reach out to us at judgingftw@gmail.com.
We're not talking about prowess.
Yeah, we're talking about transform.
I forgot my costume.
If you could, oh wow, that would have been another sweet gimmick that we could have tried. Well, I mean, usually I'm in costume of Magic Judge, so I don't know if that counts, but probably not.
That's lame.
Who in the chat is going Halloween trick or treating and they're using their judge costume or their Magic Judge uniform as a costume? I think that would be a pretty nice costume in my opinion. I would probably give extra candy to someone who did something like that.
So what you're saying is I need to walk over here on Halloween night?
I mean, you could. Lights gonna be out because Halloween night I'm gonna be out of town. But
rats. Okay.
Yep.
Well, I'll try next year.
Yep. You can next year. It might not be on someone's day.
See,
all right.
This Halloween I'm going as my dog.
Your dog?
My dog.
Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, we thought it would be a kind of a fun little tie-in thing. Transform werewolves Halloween
Costume.
We could have gone with the mega low effort this is not right.
No, I don't think it's possessive. Is it possessive?
No, I do believe it's like this.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm a baller like that. So yeah, this is we could have went with the super low effort one where we did this, but
yes,
we could devote an entire episode to rulings for that card, but I don't know,
that'd be really boring and incredibly fringe.
I mean, for some people it'd be boring. I would really like it.
It
So
would be incredibly fringe.
we decided instead that we're going to talk about spooky stuff of a different type.
Yeah, characters with costumes.
Yeah, so Liliana, one of the most popular costume characters, and she's got the crows, so she's also super on theme. So what would happen, Dalton, if we had Liliana the Heretical Healer, and then we transformed that into Liliana the Defiant Necromancer?
Sure, sounds like a good idea.
And then we played another Liliana Heretical Healer.
So we have one Lily Defiant Necromancer and one Lily Heretical Healer on the battlefield?
Yes.
Well, I feel like our opponents will not be happy, but we're going to be totally cool with it.
Yeah, the flavor judges aren't going to be happy either. It's
No.
hey, come on, guys. Clearly you have both of these legendary permanents in play. They're clearly the same thing, but even though they're represented by the same physical card, they are in fact discrete permanents with different names, which is what the legend rule looks at. So therefore they are perfectly fine coexisting with each other on the battlefield. So yep, no problems there. Awesome. So we'll start off a little bit easier. If you've never seen a double face card, here's a brief rundown. So let's say we're gonna need the physical magic cards for this little demo.
Trick or treat.
That's the goblins right there getting to me.
David.
So one in the chat if that's ever happened to you before.
So for those of you who are not aware, this is a magic card.
Yeah, it is.
And the majority of magic cards
it's a magic card that used to be sorted, but now it's
have
not
this
anymore.
on the back. Am I blowing your mind
Yeah,
yet?
if you've ever seen that, that's a magic card back. But for this type of magic card, this is a double-faced card.
David also has a magic card. See, the fronts
Yeah, the fronts also look this,
very similar.
But the back, mine has a different back. Mine has a Nissa, whatever the
Sage Animist.
Yeah. I picked a green one so that when we flipped it over, it would show the fact that we're using a green screen. Oh yeah, Arlen Cord, another famous transforming magic card.
Whoa.
So that is what the transform cards are. They have two magic card faces instead of using one face two times. And so that's pretty cool. So that's what they are. If you've never seen those before, they actually do those in pretty much every set. Certainly every block anyway. Now it seems like.
So we do have them in standard right now. If your store is more on that end. So the cards from Ixalan and Rivals of Ixalan, you have things like Storm the Vault, Treasure Map, Journey to Eternity, these cards are transform cards that you need to be aware of.
Yep.
Some of them will exile themselves and come back and transform.
Ooh,
Others
boy.
might just flip.
Oh,
they might
boy.
just transform.
Yeah.
Which does have a very important distinction.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And we'll talk about that later on in the day. So okay.
I guess we can.
Oh, believe me, we talked about that. There's a couple questions.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's interesting fact number one. Interesting fact about number two is that anywhere that's not on the battlefield, we're gonna only be able to see the front face of these cards, and anywhere. Give me the Arlen Cord. This is gonna be. Yeah. All right. The Arlen Cord for some reason also is green, but it doesn't have that same shade of green in its box.
Nope.
So if this is the face that's up with Arlen Cord, this is the only face the game can see when it's on the battlefield. Every other time, so when it's on the battlefield with this face up and anywhere else that's not on the battlefield, this is the only face that the game can see.
Yeah.
So, for example, if a game were to ask you, Arlen Cord isn't a great example of this because the front face and the back face are pretty similar.
Yeah, well, let's go with.
But if you have Nissa, for example, or if you have our old pal Liliana, everybody likes Liliana. Yeah. So if you have an effect that asks you to search your library for a Planeswalker card, you cannot find this. And that is because this is the back face of Liliana, the Heretical Healer. And the front face of Liliana, Heretical Healer, is the only face that the game can see when it's in your library. Mm-hmm. Therefore, you will not be searching for a Planeswalker because, it's just some random creature. Who knows? It has Liliana in the name, but we can't see the back face, so we can't say that it's a Planeswalker. Mm-hmm. So that is an example of that. You only are able to see the front face.
And that's not only in hidden zones.
Oh yeah.
So for example, if David and I are playing Magic, he has a Liliana Heretical Healer in his graveyard, and I have a Tarmogoyf.
Yeah.
That Tarmogoyf can only see Liliana Heretical Healer. It has absolutely no idea that there's a Planeswalker hiding in the graveyard. Just because it's in a public zone doesn't make it any different.
Yeah, and sometimes people will like flip them over when they're like reading, and then you put it back that way. Even if the only face of the card that players can see is the back face, the only face that the game is going to be able to see in the graveyard is the front face. Mm-hmm. So that's something to be aware of. All right, so that's good. That's good. Yeah. There's one kind of exception to this rule here. On the back face, you might have noticed that like the back face of most of these doesn't have a converted mana or a mana cost, right? So
correct.
The converted mana cost is determined as though it has the mana cost of the front face. We'll talk about that and like what that means a little bit more later.
Yep, and similarly color as well.
Yeah, well the color actually is not have a special thing.
No,
you have a color indicator for those.
Some of them, yeah. So color has its own special indicator. It does not necessarily go off of the front. So David, I don't know, can they see your mouse?
No.
I'm not sure.
No, they can't see
so
the mouse.
Liliana Defiant Necromancer, if you look down at the type line, it has a little black circle in front of Planeswalker Liliana. That circle defines the color of that permanent.
Yeah.
I didn't notice these were on cards for a long time, but cards with Suspend. So for example, or cards that can only be cast using Suspend, such as Restore Balance.
Oh. I was wondering where we were going with that.
No.
Yeah, Restore Balance has a color indicator if there were a modern printer, modern day printing of it. The Living End one though.
Ancestral Living End.
Yeah, Living End I believe has been reprinted. So, it hasn't. All right. Well, Ancestral Vision surely has.
Yes.
I don't know why I didn't go with my my favorite, the blue card anyway.
There we go.
So, yeah, okay. So, the blue version of this one has been reprinted after color indicators were invented. So, now we have that. Dryad Arbor has the same sort of issue. The original printing of Dryad Arbor does not have a color indicator, but the new printing of Dryad Arbor does.
Yep. Yeah, so that's something to be aware of. I'd say a vast majority of Transform cards will have the same color as the front.
Yeah.
But that's something to be aware of with cards that have seen a newer printing.
Yeah, transform, by the way, is the reason that color indicators were invented. Did you know that?
No,
yeah,
I didn't.
Yeah, that's where they first were introduced. And so it was because they didn't want to have to keep, like, the space was really at a premium for these things. Because, like, every single one had to have the ability, like, when da-da-da, transform this. So they couldn't fit an extra ability of, like, this is whatever color on all of them. So they came up with this idea of the color indicators.
Now you said...
I actually really like that idea.
Now you said the back face of a card has the same converted mana cost, right?
Yes.
Does that mean I can just cast the back face?
No. Unfortunately, like Ancestral Vision, there is no mana cost on the backside, and you cannot cast something that has no mana cost. Even if it... None of them have mana costs. Even if it's a land, for example. Let's say what's our favorite, like, land
Treasure
one?
Map.
Yeah, Treasure Cove. That's a good one. So okay, yeah, okay, Dave. Here's a land. I can play lands, right, without having to worry about whether it has a mana cost. Well, okay, so even so, you also are prohibited from playing it as a land on the back face. There's specific rules that say you can only play these as the front face of the card. That makes sense because, like, in your hand or indeed in any other zone that's not the battlefield that you would be casting them from, only the characteristics of the front face are able to be seen by the game. So that's in addition to the fact that it would be really, really dumb if you could just, like, play stuff like this. Well, Treasure Cove maybe not as bad, but certainly some of the other ones, like the Tolarian Academy one. Yeah, we'll just play the like whatever it's called.
We'll play Tolarian Academy. Storm the Vaults.
Yeah, Storm the Vault. Is that what it was?
And then I don't remember what the thing it transforms into.
Oh, yeah. Without that, we can't see what the back face is. All right, but yeah, you can't just play those. That's not how the game works. So that's pretty much, what you would expect, probably, I suppose, from a game balance perspective. Okay, so also, unless the card says otherwise, it'll enter the battlefield not transformed. So they will generally be obvious which side is the front and which one is the back. They all have these little logo things on them. You can see the logo has changed over the years. So, for example, on the Storm the Vault, we have this kind of, Ixalan-themed logo for the front face.
But on the back face...
that's not going to work, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, on the back face, it'll have the knight side. Liliana this is the front face icon that they use during this set. It looks different, kind of like a stylized Planeswalker symbol. For Delver, we had like this one that kind of looks like a sun, and then the back face looked like a knight. So, there are all kinds of different stuff. There is some place in the rules, I believe, where it says what all the front face icons are.
It does. It specifically says it in the comprehensive rules.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that's one of the things. All right, so transformed just refers to the physical action of doing this.
Yeah.
Either way, like going from the back face to the front face, that counts as transforming. Go from the front face to the back face is also transforming. Some permanents, like this guy, you can do this, but there's no way for the game to, there's nothing on the card that lets you go back the other way. So for some, it's a one-way process. For others, it's a multi-way process. It's just that's how they are.
For those of you who are looking at the comprehensive rules about transform, be aware that it is different than flip.
Yes.
Colloquially, a lot of us just say, "Oh, it flips," and we all know what that means. However, flip cards are a little bit different. And if you don't know what I'm talking about...
If you've never seen one of these before, well, that's probably a good thing.
I don't blame you.
They printed these cards once in Kamigawa block, and Wizards quickly learned from their mistake, and double-face cards are basically what they were trying to do with these, but, like, executed better. So people, got confused a lot by this sort of stuff. They work basically the same way, except there's some different stuff. For some reason, flipping a card is a one-way process. Did you know that? Like, once you flip Soratomi Ascendant into Arayo's Essence, it's not possible to get it back unless you, like, leave the battlefield. So that's kind of an interesting one. And then on top of that, you've got some other, like, kind of weird stuff that can go on with flip cards.
So speaking of, what happens if I cast Momentary Blink on a transform card?
All right, so this is Momentary Blink for those of you. Oh, come on, find. Okay, good. So yeah, this is Momentary Blink for those of you following along. What it does is it exiles a creature, then returns it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So if I have, say for example, we'll look at one that's a creature on both sides. So let's say we have the Timber Shredder, and we Momentary Blink that. What will happen is when he leaves the battlefield, it's going to return it to the battlefield. Mm-hmm. Now the game by default will always return it to the battlefield with its front face up. Mm-hmm. Therefore, the Momentary Blink does not say anything about return it transformed. And so then it will
end up as
will be the Hinterland
good old
logger?
friend.
Yeah, that's what the front face of that card would be called. Yeah, so it will end up just being this one. So it untransforms, as they say.
My first draft that I
ever
did.
Those were both in standard, or those were both in the same set, weren't they?
So I did a chaos draft once, and it was horrible because I didn't know what I was doing. I was a very new player, didn't understand drafting. Yeah. Second draft I ever did was Shadows over Innistrad, and I got a green-black deck. And I want to say I had 2 or 3 Hinterland Loggers in it. I went 6-0. I was thrilled. Now, to be fair, I was beating up on like Boy Scouts who were half my age, but you know what? It was
still got them though.
I showed them.
That's the important thing.
I was also with my friend Zach, who went in. He was going to draft a mono blue deck in Shadows over Innistrad, which is garbage. Pack 2, pick 1, and he announced this too. Pack 2, pick 1. I opened Thing in the Ice. I was like, I don't need this, but I don't want him to have it. He was to my right.
Yeah.
So it was great, and I showed him too.
Yeah, and you're legal. You can show the face down
cards
or the double face cards. Yeah, that's how they work in draft. By the way, friends, is like if you open your booster pack and you got Arlen Cord, everybody has the right to see that you opened a double face card in your draft because of course, unlike normal cards, they don't have a magic back. So when you open it and then when you take it. That is public, and the practice that has evolved, which I don't believe has been codified in the MTR yet, but it's what everybody does and tells other people to do, is that you have one pile for all of your normal stuff and one pile for all your double-faced cards. And so when you draft a double-faced card, you put that in the double-faced card pile, and then every time you draft a double-faced card, you can only see like the most recent one that you drafted. So that's kind of interesting. There is like some allowances that they had to make in order to make them work in draft. But that's how we did it. All right, double-faced cards are the only ones that can transform, right? So if you've got like the Arao's Essence and something tells you to transform it, you can't because that's it doesn't have a back face. Transform specifically refers to the action of take a double-faced card and turn it so that its other face is up.
Oh, so it's like manifest.
Ooh, you would think that, but actually that's not, and it's also not like unmanifesting. So like
or morphing.
Yeah. So if you were to have something like say a Death of Mistraptor, that would be an example of something that you turn face up and face down with a morph. This creature here has Megamorph, so it's the same thing as morph. That also is physically represented by the game action of going from this to this. But, again, this is not what we are referring to when we say transform, because this is not a double-face card. So, for example, if we did transform, like, a Nissa or something, that would not that would not be a permanent you control turned face up. If we were to transform the Timber Shredder into the Hinterland Logger, we are turning from the back face to the front face, but that does not count in the rules as something being turned face up, so Death Mistraptor's ability would not trigger from that happening.
Here's a little hint. Face up does not equal front face.
Yeah, okay, that's a good...
Face down does not equal back face.
Yeah.
So if you morph a Delver of Secrets or manifest it somehow, it'll have Delver, or what is it, Insectile Aberration, right?
What?
Delver Secrets, the backside is Insectile Aberration.
Yeah, but if you manifest it, then it's just a 2/2.
Exactly. It will. The back of the card will say Insectile Aberration, 3/2 flyer, but the card will be a 2/2 manifest.
Yeah, and also that part won't be visible.
Not with the sleeve.
Yeah.
But if you have the physical card, because for some reason you don't care.
Well, you wouldn't get the physical card out at that point yet. Oh gee, I forgot to bring the checklist cards down. Oh no. Checklist cards are what you should use rather than relying on your sleeves to be opaque. All the sets that have double-faced cards also have a checklist card, so it has all the double-faced cards listed on it. Do I have one? Maybe I do. I don't think so.
There is a fun rule with that I learned down on my way to GP Columbus, I think.
Oh, what's that?
And that's that a deck cannot split between using...
Yeah, I'm not sure what the purpose of that rule is.
No, so you cannot... Say you're running a playset of Delver of Secrets. You can't run 2 checklist cards and then 2 Delvers in your deck. You either have to go 4 of Delver or 4 of checklist. Otherwise, it is against the rules, and I believe it's marked cards.
Yeah.
It's a weird one.
It's a strange situation for sure. It doesn't come up very often because,
No. And it's also only between the same card name.
Yeah.
So if I have 4 Delvers as the card, but then I have 2 Nissa Vastwood Seers in checklist, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if it's the same card name, I have to have them all represented the same way.
Yeah, another interesting thing is that if you have double-faced cards in your deck, you can use the checklist cards to represent them in your deck. Mm-hmm. And you can also have like a playset of them in your deck box, obviously, for, if you're running 4 of them in your deck, you can have 4 of them in your deck box.
You have to have 4 of them.
And yeah, that'd be a good idea but you can also have 4 more for the backside, and those don't count like that. That wouldn't be the same thing as having like 8 of them. That would not be against the rules.
Yeah, so with that, if you're running a playset of cards in your deck and you say, oh, well, I'll only ever have 1 out because maybe it's legendary or whatever, if you are running checklist cards in your deck, you have to have those physical cards on you. There's no... I could see it happening with something like Search for Azcanta. You could have 1 on the battlefield, 1 transformed on the battlefield, and maybe 1 in the graveyard, but that'll be a checklist card. So you say, oh, well, I'll only ever need 2 of them, 1 for the front and 1 for the back.
Yeah.
Which sounds like it makes sense. Search for Azcanta is a pricey card, and you might not be able to afford it.
Yeah. But
that's not okay.
You have to actually have 4 of the card if you're playing 4 of them. Even if it's not possible for you to need more than 2. So that's kind of lame, but I suppose whatever. All right, so now it's time for some questions. Who's ready for some interesting questions? Anybody in the chat have any questions? Be sure to let us know.
Yep.
But we for sure have some prepared ones that we can talk about.
Send them our way, because otherwise
we're at
I'll
Dave's talk mercy. About whatever I want. And yeah, you know what kind of questions we're gonna get. And this is transform. This is the transform mechanic, guys.
At the end of the year,
this is gonna be pretty scary stuff.
At the end of the year, we need to put out a Dave's Rules No Mercy challenge for our followers.
Oh, you mean like different from the one that I do for everybody?
No, we need to have it on Twitch. Make sure people
maybe our Patreons. Maybe we could get Patreons, and only the Patreons can submit something. I don't know how that would work, but I'm very bad at trying.
They give us questions, and then we have to answer.
Yeah, we have to answer them on stream without any prep.
Live.
So there's chance. Yeah, so there's a chance I could mess it up. That's a good one. I like that one.
Or if you subscribe.
Yeah, if you're a follower or a patron, then we will definitely do that for you. I don't mind looking like a fool.
Do we even have a Patreon?
No.
So if you subscribe,
you could find me at an event and give me money. I mean, you could do that.
If you subscribe to this channel, we will answer your question with
live
no
on
prep.
Air with no prep. And with only all right. So here's another one. Ooh, yeah, I like this question. I wrote this one up before, and this was a really excellent one. So let's say you have this duder, Gideon the Battle Forged, and he is a Gideon Planeswalker.
Oh, so he's a beef slab.
Yeah, he's very Gideon-esque.
Sure.
Okay, so we have this, and we play a Moon Mist. What happens?
This is a weird chaos draft.
Yeah.
So Moon Mist, transform all humans, prevent all combat damage. That would be dealt by non-humans, I believe, or
non-werewolves.
By non-werewolves.
Yeah, we got to be on theme.
So you would think, great,
and wolves too.
Oh, and wolves, good. So you would think, oh, duh, that's only going to see play in shadows. Why would that matter? For those of you keeping track at home, Gideon is a human. and he is double-faced.
Yeah, that's true.
Which means he can transform. Now, Kythian, Hero of Akros says, exile this card and return it to the battlefield transformed. That is still the act that still involves transforming, even though it doesn't occur on the battlefield. So,
yeah, it still has the word transform in it.
Exactly, yeah. Just because it transforms in exile doesn't mean it doesn't transform, doesn't mean it hasn't transformed. So by casting Moon Mist, we are flipping Kythian. Well, we are transforming it.
Yeah.
Catch myself on my own mistakes.
Yep. So let's say we have Gideon's a human when it's animated.
Yep.
But if you play Moon Mist when it isn't animated, Gideon isn't going to be a human,
Nope.
so that's not going to do anything. So yeah, if you play it when Gideon is animated, then it'll turn into this, which is its back face. Even though it's not normally possible to transform Gideon back the other way into Kythian, there's no reason that says we can't do that. So that's exactly what happens.
Now, if you wouldn't mind heading back to Battleforge.
Oh wait. What if we Moon Mist this?
Oh, if we Moon Mist this, it's great. Why don't we cast Moon Mist?
Oh, okay.
Let's transform it.
Yeah, because this is a human also, so you can transform all humans. But there's a problem. What's the problem, Dalton? It would be a very scary idea to Moon Mist this.
Oh yeah. So, if you Moon Mist this, Kythian has how many loyalty counters on him?
Well, probably 0, because usually creatures don't have loyalty counters on them.
Kythian's probably going to have 0. Kythian's probably going to have 0. So the fact that the Planeswalker, the flip Planeswalkers from Origins, exile themselves and come back is so that when they enter...
This is why.
They have that replacement effect of entering with loyalty counters.
Yeah.
If you were to just transform it, it sees all the values of Kythian, Hero of Akros.
Yeah.
Including like counters and things by values, and we'll have them when it turns into Gideon Battleforged. State-based actions say that a Planeswalker with no loyalty counters on it is put into its graveyard.
Ooh.
Not great.
Yeah, nothing put any loyalty counters on it while it was transforming, so it's not.
Now with Moon Mist, it says to transform all humans. Gideon Battleforged is a human when it's animated. However, it also has some more text there. It doesn't just become a human.
Oh, hey,
It becomes a human that is a 4/4 soldier with indestructible and prevents all damage that we dealt to him this turn.
Yeah.
So because of that, because it has all of that information, even though it transforms back into Kythian, that effect still applies.
Yes.
So you actually have
Kythian
a
will be
Kythian
indestructible,
that is a 4/4 indestructible.
All damage prevented to it.
However, Moon Mist prevents his damage, so it's kind of
no.
It's kind of a Nombo
blocker. Well, it's a Nombo.
It's a good blocker or attacker.
But it is all humans, so maybe it's a good countermeasure for opponents who are siding in Gideon to attack you with. I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
If you're really striving for werewolves in Modern.
Yeah, you'd have to be very striving. All right. Next question here. Oh, now this is actually kind of interesting. So let's say we have a copy enchantment here, which is basically it's like clone but with enchantments.
What dumb set is that?
That's like the like dual deck thing that they released concurrent with Ravnica. I don't remember what they call it.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the first time the card's been reprinted. Did you know that?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it is.
I was going to say, like, I can't think of any other
Gen Con, I opened a copy enchantment in an OG Ravnica pack.
Oh.
I was like, oh, well, this is kind of dumb. Whatever, I'll pick it up. It's a rare. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's like $13.
Yeah. It's the only clone for enchantments. Yeah, well, the old ones are still probably worth something.
Yeah.
So let's say we copied a what's a sweet enchantment based one that we could copy?
Invasion.
Yeah. Oh, I remember this card. I think it should have been a lot better than it was, in my opinion. So yeah, okay.
1 mana 3/4.
Yeah, 1 mana 3/4.
They banned less in Modern.
So we have a skin invasion on our opponent's creature, and we also are using a copy enchantment to make a copy of Skin Invasion, put it on like some other creature, right? So what happens if the copy enchantment creature dies?
Yeah.
What will happen?
So, for all intents and purposes, our copy enchantment is a Skin Invasion.
Yes.
That's how the rules work. We know that. We've done copy effects.
Sure,
oh boy.
We have.
So, the creature will die, and copy excuse me, Skin Invasion does have that text. When enchanted creature dies, return Skin Invasion to the battlefield transformed under your control.
Yes.
In the past, we've talked before, whenever a card references itself by name, so in this case, return Skin Invasion, it refers to this card.
Yes.
So the fact that Copy Enchantment won't be a Skin Invasion in the graveyard,
no problem.
Is not a problem. So it will say return this card to the battlefield. Can we do that action? Is that legal?
Well, returning it to the battlefield is possible to do and is legal, but there is one additional word on this ability that maybe could pose a little bit of a threat. So notice that it says to return Skin Invasion to the battlefield transformed.
So
Copy Enchantment is a normal Magic card.
Can we do that?
It does not have a back face, or it does not have a it doesn't have a back face. And as a result of that, it is not possible to return it to the battlefield transformed. Ordinarily, in cases like this, you would do as much as possible. But this is not that case. You are not able to return it transformed, and so you're not able to return it at all. And Copy Enchantment stays in your graveyard.
What a bummer.
Yeah, it's sad. I do believe they may have changed that rule at some point, so that's certainly that's one of those ones where, like, if somebody didn't tell you that's how it worked, you would not know how it worked.
Yeah, because usually, like you mentioned, we do try to do as much as possible. Unfortunately, that return to the battlefield transformed is the whole action. And it can't be divided up. So you just cannot do it, and therefore it stays in the graveyard. Sadness. So, David.
Treasure hunting.
I want to hunt for treasure. Have you ever been treasure hunting?
I mean, I've got a metal detector. Does that count?
Sure, we'll call it that.
Sure, okay.
Is it like a dagger knife sickle?
Yeah, no, it's not that cool of a metal detector, unfortunately.
Bummer.
Maybe if I found a treasure, I would be able to get a better one.
Okay, so I have treasure map out, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm hunting for treasure. I'm gonna activate this for my third time. It's got its third landmark counter. I'm gonna flip it.
Is that what they are? Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna transfer it. I'm gonna get 3 treasure tokens, and then I'm gonna go ahead and sack one to draw a card.
Well, do you have like another treasure cove?
No, this one.
Oh, okay.
It transforms.
So let's read carefully what happens. When there are 3 or more landmark counters on it, remove those counters, transform treasure map, and create 3 treasure tokens. Okay. So the interesting thing is that what this does not say to do is untap it. And as a result of that fact, we are transforming it. Transform does happen in place unless it specifically says that you're exiling it and returning it to the battlefield transformed, which many of them do, so be sure to read the cards. But because this instruction to transform it does not include the instruction to untap it also, you will have a tapped treasure cove at the end of performing that instruction, and therefore you will not be able to tap and sacrifice a treasure to draw a card. It's kind of a bummer, but I guess you get 3 treasure tokens, so hopefully they don't have like a wasteland or a whatever other land destruction stuff that they got going on these days.
Okay, but David, I have Amulet of Vigor out.
Okay, so that's an interesting point. What would happen in that case if we read Amulet of Vigor?
Does it work now? Can I draw a card? I really need to draw a card.
Boy, it would be great if you would get to draw a card. You're playing all these janky like cards that don't really go together to be able to do it. So this one says whenever a permanent enters the battlefield tapped and under your control, untap it. So with this being the case, that is not what happened in this scenario. The treasure map has not entered the battlefield. If it did enter the battlefield, it would have entered the battlefield untapped, because that's what it says. By default, we put stuff into the battlefield untapped, just like we put stuff onto the battlefield untransformed. And so, yeah, even though the Amulet of Vigor would, untap it if it had entered the battlefield, it has not entered the battlefield. It just transformed.
Yep. So
completely different.
New object. It is not considered a new object.
Yeah. Any enchantments that are on the treasure map will stay.
As long as they're legal.
Yeah. It would need to still be something that could enchant Treasure Cove, rather than like if it was an enchant artifact, it would go away because Treasure Cove is not an artifact.
Yep. Any counters that it had that aren't specifically told to be removed would stay on.
Yep.
And as a reminder, things like +1/+1 counters, those can exist on lands and all sorts of things.
No problem. But yeah, the ones that say to exile and then return to the battlefield transform, those are different because exiling and returning to the battlefield is a action that causes all that stuff to go away. So yeah, be sure to read the friendly cards very closely because there have been very many different ways to do this sort of stuff that have been printed. All right, so here's another another kind of interesting thing that I think would be interesting for people to hear about. It's also related to copying these things. So this is Elusive Tormentor, one of my favorite example cards because it's simple to use and simple to transform.
Sure.
Yeah. So let's say we have the Elusive Tormentor and then we have a clone, right?
Yeah.
Right. So we clone the Elusive Tormentor, then we activate the ability. What happens?
Well, we activated it.
Yep.
That's it.
Aw.
So, like we mentioned, clone, it can enter as an Elusive Tormentor, but because it does not have a magic back, it cannot transform.
Yes.
So we can activate the ability. We can do that all we want. Maybe I'm running some sort of Madness deck or Hellbent deck.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That I just need to discard cards. And I can do that as many times as I need to. But no matter how many times I try, that will never be able to transform.
Yes. Yes.
So what about the other side?
The Insidious Mist.
What about the Insidious Misty?
Yeah. So this is also the same thing. If you clone this, the clone will not be able to transform back. So yeah, you can have the triggered ability trigger and go on the stack, and you can even pay the 2 and a black. But even if you do, you will not be able to transform it because that's not possible.
Now, David, if I clone my Insidious Mist, what's the converted mana cost of that clone?
Interesting question. So first of all, we'll talk about that question later on. we've got that one scheduled for later in the broad. Oh, believe me, that was an important one. That was very important for me to have that question represented here.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Think about it, chat.
So okay, the one that I used for this question was actually this. It was Perfected Form, right? So if you've never seen this card before, the front face of Perfected Form is actually this Aberrant Researcher. So the question is, can you Abrupt Decay Aberrant Researcher? Abrupt Decay, of course, referring to convert mana cost 3 or less. So obviously the
I can do math.
Yeah.
No.
People who can count and know how converted mana cost works could be able to identify that the converted mana cost of this card is 4.
But David, there's a 3.
Which is not 3 or less.
It says 3.
We'll talk about that during our broadcast on how mana costs work. So okay, pretty straightforward here. We can't Abrupt Decay this, but if we transform into the Perfected Form, look.
No mana cost.
There's no mana cost, and we know what that means, right, Dalton?
0.
Yeah. When there's no mana cost, then the converted mana cost is defined by the game rules to be 0, except if it's a double-faced card. So if it's a double-faced card, there's actually this really weird way that you have to do things, and I am not a big fan of this. The current way, because they have changed how this works, not 1, not 2, I believe we're on the 3rd time of transforming how this rule works. But the current way that you do this is, if you have a double-faced card and you need to know the converted mana cost, you pretend that the mana cost is the same as the front face. That is how you calculate the converted mana cost of a double-faced card. So I suppose they're
pretend.
I mean, that's what it is. Like, it doesn't actually have that mana cost. Oh. Let's say we have a Perfected Form, and there's some effect that wants to know what its mana cost is. Like, maybe we enchanted it with this card, Fendrel Flux. So pay this card's mana cost or sacrifice it. So okay, we have lots of mana, and we really like Perfected Form. What do we have to pay in order to sacrifice, or in order to not have to sacrifice this?
We just said we have to pretend it's 4 so far.
So that's what you would think. But remember what I said, and listen very carefully for any potential hints as to what the right answer might be. When you are calculating the converted mana cost of a double-faced card, you pretend that the mana cost is the same as the front face. Notice that the the comprehensive rules people did not say the mana cost is the same as front face. No. You are pretending, and you are pretending in a very real way, because if something in the game needs to know the mana cost, not the converted mana cost, the mana cost of a double-faced card, then it doesn't have one.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so that's how it works. That's literally how it works. So, can you Abrupt Decay Perfected Form? No, because the converted mana cost of Perfected Form is 4. Because when we're looking at the converted mana cost, we have to look at the mana cost on the front face. Can you pay mana to save your Perfected Form from a Pendril Flux?
Don't have to.
No, you can't. You are not able to. It is not possible to pay no mana, a null mana cost. So it will be sacrificed, and there's nothing you can do to save it. It will be fluxed right out of there. And so that is kind of weird. If you clone...
What if I have... Oh, no, never mind.
No. If you clone a Perfected Form, how do you think it works?
Well...
What do you think the mana cost and or converted mana cost of the clone would be?
If I clone a Perfected Form, I'm going to think long and hard about my decisions. So what we said is if we need to know the converted mana cost of a card, we pretend it's the front. Of a double-faced card, we pretend it's the front.
That's important.
So I'm...
Is clone a double-faced card?
You would think that since I'm cloning a double-faced card, it's going to be that double face. But that would be false.
Yeah.
So my clone only sees Perfected Form. My clone doesn't have another face.
Yeah.
So I only know this object to be Perfected Form, which means my converted mana cost is
0. Yeah, it's 0 because the mana cost is undefined. So we'll give you another brief rundown. So I know that was kind of confusing because there's a lot of different weird...
Because it is.
I think this is like, the rules for handling this are a worse abomination than this thing is. Yes. So the way it works is, can you Abrupt Decay Perfected Form? No, because its converted mana cost is 4. Which okay, that's fine. I think from a game balance point of view, that should be all right. Can you, what is the mana cost of Perfected Form? It doesn't have a mana cost. Okay, if we clone a Perfected Form, can you Abrupt Decay that? Yes, because you don't have a mana cost still, but this time you also don't have a front face to look at the front face of. So that is the reason why you can Abrupt Decay clone of Perfected Form, but you can't Abrupt Decay original Perfected Form, which is kind of weird. All right, so that...
But if you crack a fetch, you can Fatal Push them all.
Yeah, Fatal Push them all. So that is one weird thing that can happen with these. Would you believe, Dalton, that there are additional weird things that can happen?
I don't think there are any weirds that transform.
No, there are some weird. There's some weird ones though. So here's an interesting question. Let's say we have the Kindly Stranger and we have Delirium.
She's so friendly.
Yeah, she's very, very strange also. Now, let's say we have Delirium, so we're going to activate this ability, but we have 6 mana. And, why would you want to transform and then hold priority and then activate the ability again?
So what I'm thinking here is I'm going to do that twice. Now, I know what Kindly Stranger turns into.
Yeah.
Also, there's a little bit... If you look, you can see the horns behind her.
Oh, I did not notice that. The Nicol Bolas horns in the shadow. So
I know that Kindly Stranger turns into Demon Possessed Witch, which has a sweet ability. When it transforms into this, you may destroy target creature.
Yeah, so if you have 6 mana, you can just transform it very briefly, and then
it'll transform. It'll trigger, and because I've held priority and I'm transforming it, I'm going to transform it back.
Yeah, so we remember that that is a thing you can do, even though there isn't normally a way to transform Demon Possessed Witch. That is... if something tells you to transform it, you do.
Then you got it, right?
You can. It has a magic, or it doesn't have a magic back, so it's a real live double-faced card.
Well...
So you would think that works. And
what
if
I told you could?
Oh, yeah, that part works. You would transform to Demon Possessed Witch, and you would, flip it back over. But there might be some potential game significance reasons why that might not be a great plan.
Okay, so you're probably going to tell me here that when Shadows of Innistrad came out, there was a rules change that said that if you were going to transform a permanent multiple times, then it was not allowed.
Oh, do you remember how the rule works? Okay, so this is also something that's kind of, so basically the way this works is the rules team didn't want that to work. Okay, so they're like, okay, how can we fix it so that people who do this get to not have, because paying 6 mana to destroy target creature would just be madness.
In limited? Yeah.
Yeah, like as an uncommon.
And still keep your 2/2 or whatever.
Yeah. So okay, so here's the rule. If an ability wants to transform a double-faced card, but that permanent has transformed since that ability was put onto the stack, the instruction to transform the double-faced card is ignored. So yeah, that is what happens. So what that means is if you pay your 6 mana and you activate the Kindly Stranger ability, hold priority, activate it again, what will happen is the first one will transform the Kindly Stranger into Demon Possessed Witch, and then you'll get to destroy a creature. And then the second one will say, hey, look, that permanent has transformed since this ability was put onto the stack, and therefore the instruction to transform it is ignored.
Yep.
This is also the same thing. Like if you wanted to double transform the other guy, the whatever it's called, the Tormentor.
Elusive Tormentor.
Yeah, there we go. So if, let's say we one discard a card, one discard another card. So that way we could stay being on the 4/4 half of this. So that actually does not work either. So if you wanted to discard a card, you would have to switch to the Insidious Mist. And if you would rather one and discard another card and stay being a 4/4, you can't do that. Which is kind of weird. That is not how it used to work when this set came out, but now it is how it works. So that's the way these things go, I suppose.
Yay!
Yeah. Any other kind of interesting stuff? Anybody in the chat who has any ideas about questions that they'd like to ask? For sure, we welcome those questions here. We do have a couple more really interesting situations, I think. Wow! I didn't even realize this question was on there. Oh wow, that's actually really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like for some of us, it's really cool.
For others of us, share it?
For others of us, it might not be as great. But okay. So let's say we have the Delver of Secrets.
Sure.
And this is probably, if I was going to put a number, what percent market share would you say the Delver of Secrets has? Like in other words, like out of all the transform cards that have ever been played in a game of Magic, what percentage of them do you think would be Delver of Secrets?
Are we talking constructed play?
We're talking about any sanctioned game of Magic. What percentage of transform cards has been Delver of Secrets? It's gotta be
5 to 10.
5 to 10? Are you kidding me, man?
You know how many drafts there must have been with Shadows?
Yeah, well, like most of them are unplayable. And you know how many like modern decks that this has been in, and like it was a standard deck too. This was a tier 1 standard deck. This wasn't a tier 1 deck. This was the deck.
I would go with no more than 20.
Yeah, I don't know. I would think it would be a lot higher, but maybe what you said is right, because there actually have been a whole lot of flip cards or transform cards. Okay, so we have the Delver of Secrets. Everybody knows the back face of this is like some insectile aberration. So we're staying on theme here.
Also. No, never mind. I'm good.
Okay.
I was thinking of something that was going to make me really mad, but then I remembered, nope, they're right.
Okay, good. So we have a Delver of Secrets in play, and then there's this card which was a great idea to print because it gives judges like us a chance to ask rules questions like this. Some plays Ixtradron, and as Ixtradron enters the battlefield, you turn all other non-token creatures face down. Right, so we'll turn the Delver of Secrets face down. What is the characteristics of the Delver of Secrets at that point?
What could possibly go wrong with this?
Yeah, well, when they printed Ixtradron, they weren't really thinking about Transform because that had not been invented yet. But yeah, that's...
When was Ixtradron originally printed?
Onslaught block.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it was the first time that Morph was a mechanic. So that's why it has like the power and toughness equal to the number of face down creatures.
Okay.
And that's also why like it turns them all face down, because I guess significant percentage of them would be ones that you would be able to turn face up. But of course, yeah, nowadays it just kind of looks a little silly. So yeah, what happens for the Delver of Secrets? Do you think that it stays being a Delver of Secrets, or do you think it becomes a 2/2?
So this we kind of alluded to earlier. if a card face down does not mean back face.
Yes.
So if I have a Delver of Secrets out and I am told to put it face down, I must pretend that the back face of this card does not exist. And just because I have turned this card 180 degrees around, does not really mean anything.
Why would you be turning it 180 degrees around?
To turn it from one side to the other, face down.
Oh, so this is an interesting point. Would it be face down then? No, it would just be like the other face is up. So it's not possible to turn face down because it doesn't have a back face. It has like a normal face.
But
yeah. Oh yeah. It has no back face, so it's possible for them to exist face down on the battlefield. Like if you manifest a Delver of Secrets, for example, that is perfectly fine, and the game has no way to stop you from doing that. But if you have a Delver of Secrets that's on the battlefield and the game wants you to turn it face down, you can't because it doesn't have the face down. There's no such thing as the back face of the back face of the Delver isn't down. It's another card face. So because of that, it's not possible for you to turn Delver of Secrets face down, and therefore you will have it stay being on the battlefield as a merry Delver of Secrets. Continues to delve away just like nothing had happened. And he probably has like some mysteries or something to investigate after seeing like all his friends turn into 2/2s with no abilities, because he's still a 1/1. He's like, hey guys, can I turn into a?
Can I join the party?
Yeah, can I turn into a 2/2 also? Like,
no, Delver, you can be a 3/2.
Yeah, hopefully you'll become a 3/2 soon, but in due time. So yeah, that's another kind of weird one. Again, it's one of those things where like if nobody ever told you that, like how would you ever know that it worked that way? Okay, so we do have the Timber Shredder and the Hinterland Logger. We do have one additional kind of like concern, a practical concern about these sorts of things. So maybe if you noticed when you were following along here, you notice that like a lot of these are triggered abilities, right? To transform.
Yeah.
Right? So like at the beginning of each upkeep, 2 spells. This is the only way, by the way. Back when these cards were first introduced, this is the only way that stuff transformed. Is that at the beginning of the upkeep, if no spells were cast. That's not true because Delver transforms.
Nope.
Yeah,
they were all triggers.
It was one of the only ways. I do believe they probably were all triggers.
No, because there's Ludwig's.
What?
Oh no, Ludwig's was a trigger from activated.
Yeah, I think so. But anyway, this was by far the most common way for sure. Then they have like a bunch of other ones that they printed, so that now this isn't really at all associated with double-faced cards. But okay, let's say we have a Hinterland Logger, right? So at the beginning of each upkeep, if no spells were cast last turn, transform Hinterland Logger, right? So that's a triggered ability. If you transform Hinterland Logger, it turns into this card, the Timber Shredder, which is not a 2/1, it's a 4/2, and it has trample.
That seems a lot better.
That triggered ability, the one that transforms you into the Timber Shredder, pretty uncontroversial that this is not a detrimental triggered ability.
I would agree with that.
Everybody was pretty fine with that. And at the beginning of each upkeep, if a player casts 2 or more spells last turn, transform Timber Shredder. Is that a detrimental triggered ability?
Kind of seems like one.
Yeah. I mean, we're transforming it from a 4/2 down to like we're downgrading it to just being a 2/1. A 2/1.
Oh, 2/1?
Yeah, this one's 2/1 for some reason. So yeah, like pretty non-controversial, But okay, so some of them is a little less cut and dry, right? Like for example, if you had something like the Delver of Secrets, that's another triggered ability. This one turns it into a 3/2 flyer, so everybody's going to be okay. But they're not all like that, right? So what kind of other ones do we have that? We didn't have any like really good ones.
Well, Mayor of Avabruck.
Yeah, Mayor of Avabruck is a good one.
So this guy had a little bit of fame in the modern humans deck when it first came out.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it sure did. Oh no, we should have did the other one. The other one was a better example, I think.
And you can still find one.
Yeah. Mayor of Avabruck is okay though. So Mayor of Avabruck, it's a human. Hey, look, it's a human lord, guys. If you wondered why we didn't play this one in the humans deck, we tried to, but it turns out the power level was too low.
Yep.
And the problem was that if no spells were cast, then you transform Mayor of Avabruck into another card, Howlpack Alpha.
Which seems great in your Ether Vial deck. or if your opponent is a control deck and can, not bother to cast things, or
so here's the
there could be a lot of issues there.
Yeah. Now this is the interesting thing, which is that Halpak Alpha is a 3/3, but maybe you have a lot of humans in play. So maybe all your humans get +1/+1 ability is more important to you than the wolves and werewolves you control get +1, and then putting a 2/2 into play every turn.
And having a 3/3.
And being a 3/3. So it's not a cut and dry thing that says like, yes, this is really good for me when I transform this. So what do you think? Is this triggered ability a detrimental triggered ability?
So
it might be detrimental to your game plan, that's for sure.
Yes.
The humans deck did not like this happening, and therefore they moved away from using the Marevap.
Yep. So this is a really interesting interaction, because what have we been taught about mistriggers? What have we been taught about triggered abilities? Is you look at that trigger, you look at the ability of the card, the triggers of the card in a vacuum. You're not supposed to take into account the rest of the game state, which, seems fair. If a deck wants to have less life, like Death Shadow, we can't always take that into consideration when missing, loss of life triggers or things like that, because that could put us on a really slippery slope.
Yeah. And judges aren't going to be able to like evaluate the game state every time.
No, we can't always do that.
Sometimes it's very ambiguous as to whether a transform would be good or not.
Like, what if I look in Dave's hand and he's got 4 werewolves in it?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, in this case, David, because you have all these cards in hand, it's not detrimental. I can't explain that to the opponent.
Right.
So this puts us in a tricky spot. Dave, you've pulled up another one, which might be a little bit.
This is the card that really brought this up to a head, and it's Duskwatch Recruiter, right? So at the beginning of your upkeep, if no spells were cast last turn, you transform Duskwatch Recruiter, and Duskwatch Recruiter has an ability that's like 3 draw card basically, but the back of the Duskwatch Recruiter has no such ability. It has like creature spells you control cost 1 less to cast, so it's very reasonable at certain points that you would want to have the Crown Horde Howler, and at certain points you would want to have the Duskwatch Recruiter. Yeah. So neither one of these triggered abilities to transform it is unambiguous at all. So at times like this, it's important to remember that the mistrigger policy does not say beneficial and detrimental. It says if it's detrimental, then that's a warning. But if it's not generally considered detrimental, then the warning gets downgraded to nothing. And so in this case, and especially with Crown Horde Howler in particular, we have an official ruling which says neither of those triggered abilities is to be considered generally detrimental. And that makes sense because it's not generally, in general, it's not possible to say whether it will be good or bad to transform either half of this card. And so that is the reason why that ruling was made.
Yep.
So that's how it works. Of course, if you're talking about the Timber Shredder and the other guy, that one for sure.
Logger.
Yeah, Hinterland Logger. That one you for sure would say that the transforming back to the 2/1 ability would be a generally detrimental thing to have happen.
But David, they have a ensnaring bridge.
Yeah.
With
generally considered
3 in hand.
Generally considered detrimental, not particularly in this spot considered detrimental. Is the important word there. So yeah, that was all of the questions that I had prepared for us today. Does anybody in the chat have any other things that they'd like to share or to ask? We will be around for a little while, and we can certainly help you out with any questions on transform cards that you might have. Dalton, did you have any questions that you wanted to ask? Like why is my favorite transform card the Delver of Secrets?
Dave, would you like to let them know why Delver of Secrets is your favorite transform card?
Oh, it's because it's the most playable. Sorry guys, I'm a Spike. What am I?
You're not wrong.
What am I gonna say? Like only one transform card has even a chance of having a plurality of the number of times that a card has been cast as a transform card. So
you don't like Thing Ascension?
I mean, like that's playable too, but it's not as playable. Like 1 mana 3/2s are pretty good as flyers.
My favorite transform card, I'm pretty certain, is Westvale Abbey.
Okay, all right.
I say pretty certain because there's a lot out there, and there could be something I'm not thinking of, but this is mine.
Why some stupid land?
Well, David, the stupid land can do a really sweet thing where it becomes this flying lifelink indestructible hasty 9/7. So I don't know about you, but that actually seems like a pretty sweet deal to me.
Why does it have haste?
Because it's a land, or it was a land.
Yeah.
So if you play this land and then you activate the ability, the creature can still attack. Because lands that transform into creatures, there's two things that transform into creatures that weren't creatures.
Oh, there's
I want to say it's this and Elbereth the Binding Blade.
There's got to be more than that. Shap,
there's at least two. Elbereth the Binding Blade is also a very good candidate. Like it's probably cut between those two for me. Yeah. With Engar Unbound. Just because I love the big dumb things on the back.
Yeah. So in any case, with the Westvale Abbey, you transform it in place and then you untap it. Notice that you're not exiling and returning it to play. But even so, it's possible that you could have 5 creatures and transform it immediately on the first turn that you have it into play. And so if you were to do that, you would transform it into Ormondal, and then you would untap, and you would be able to attack that turn because Ormondal has haste. And that's, demons are pretty good. They have haste, so there you go.
I'm running a D&D campaign, and eventually they're going to go out to fight Ormondal.
Oh, that's
awesome.
Be sweet. That is pretty cool. All right,
so,
so we will keep you updated on the results of that campaign later. But until then, this is Dave Eldon and Dalton Grimes signing out. Have a great night, everybody.
Take care. Happy Halloween.